What pushes young people to leave their families, their country, and everything they know, only to end up fighting in a war they never signed up for? That is the reality facing some Cameroonians who travel to Russia hoping for better jobs, only to find themselves recruited into the Russian military. Some have returned home in coffins. Others have come back deeply scarred. And yet, more young people continue to fall for recruitment schemes. So how does this happen? And what can be done to stop it? Please stay with us.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
This is Africa Link, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter across Africa. I am Ajua Tinkrama Domina, your host for today. Ukrainian officials say nearly 3,000 citizens from several African countries had fought or were fighting for Russia as of May this year. Cameroon, Ghana, Egypt, Kenya, and Uganda are among the countries identified as major sources of recruits. The actual number could be higher. In April, Cameroon confirmed that Russia had reported the deaths of 16 Cameroonian nationals, 7 with its military in Ukraine. So why are young Cameroonians taking these risks, and what can be done to stop deceptive recruitment? To help us unpack this, I'm joined by Dr. Banjo Herman. He's lecturer at the University of Bamenda and political analyst, as well as DW's Dorcas Akupe in Bamenda. Welcome to you both. Dorcas, what exactly is happening on the ground in Cameroon? How are young people being recruited and ending up in the Russian military?
Well, like you rightly said, Cameroon has ended up with the highest numbers. And I must say there are two things at play here. I see desperation and deception. When I talk of desperation, I mean that young Cameroonians are in search of a better life. We see so many young Cameroonians in search of a better life, in search of greener pastures, seeking ways to better their lives and that of their families. And so when they hear that there are huge sums of money will be given to them in Russia, they just abandon everything, their families, and they pursue life in Russia. But here's the twist. Here comes now the deception. You see, most of them traveling to Russia, they don't know they're going to join the army. You see, some of them are going there, probably, they're going there for some construction work, security guards, to be a security guard. And we have Cameroonians also living thinking that they are going there for studies. Sadly, once in Russia, they end up in the battlefield. So this is what is happening exactly. And what's even more painful is that we have initiatives and programs that present Russia as a friend of Cameroon, luring these Cameroonians into believing that Russia is a place of opportunities. We have programs like the African Initiative, the Alabuga, which to many young girls, it's a cultural exchange. And we see all of these factors account for why Cameroon ended up with such large numbers.
What can you tell us about the deaths that have been reported?
Well, the government had came out some time ago and said much more lower numbers, but doing my research and, hearing from other media houses and newspapers, we hear that the numbers are actually high. Indeed, the numbers are actually high, though the government did not mention such numbers. But when you read other publications and see what's happening, even seeing families who are grieving their loved ones, you notice that the number is really much more higher than, what the government had earlier on said.
Thank you, Dorcas. Banjo, Dorcas has pointed out to unemployment and how a lot of young people may feel incentivized to take up opportunities without necessarily doing their due diligence. But from where you sit as an analyst, what do you think is happening?
Thank you. I want to think that one other factor which is which we may be leaving out is the historical tie that Cameroon has with Russia. You will even realize that 2014, 2015, the president of the republic had to go back. The Republic of Cameroon had to go back to Russia to renew the long-standing military tie that had existed between Russia and Cameroon, which expired. And a lot of persons were asking the question, why is it that the war in Ukraine is ongoing and the president tactfully goes to renew the military tie that had existed between these two countries? She talked about the issue of maybe economic aspect. I want to look at it from the perspective of vulnerability, economic vulnerability, because when you look at it carefully, you realize that Russia is presenting itself to many African countries, not necessarily as a destination for war, but as a destination for jobs.
Do you think the Cameroonian government has been proactive enough in dealing with this?
As it stands, the government is not proactive in its foreign policy, because if the government is proactive in its foreign policy, the government can be able to even intervene to say that this should happen the way the government wants. But the government is not proactive in its foreign policy. And secondly, for the government to stop this, the government has to go back to its governance policy, to have a governance policy that is inclusive. So if we have this governance policy that is inclusive, transparent, and people can be able to find opportunities within the system, young people will not go out.
Well, thank you for that perspective. I don't know what the citizens think if they believe the government is being proactive. So let me bring you in at this point, Dorcas. What have the Cameroonians said about the commitment of their government to tackling this issue?
Well, most Cameroonians are really disappointed. You must agree with me that some Cameroonians are saying that for 43 years now, there've been no change, looking at things in Cameroon, because people are asking the question that for a very long time, why has the government, not said anything? Remember, it was on April April 2006, that the government came out to talk about it. Also, we even saw the Cameroon ambassador to Russia, who attended Russia's first International Security Forum in Moscow. But you can imagine it's still so unclear if the subject of Cameroonians traveling and dying in Russia was brought up. And so there's that disappointment from the government by Cameroonians who believe that the government is not working enough. They have not put policies in place enough to stop what is actually happening. And some even believe that because they have ties, linking them together. So maybe that's part of why nothing has been said much on the sides of the government.
For family members whose relatives have been lost through these schemes, what is the feeling among them?
Some of them are really heartbroken because most of them never even knew that their sons were going to join the military. They only had to hear, after you just imagine a mother who knows, oh, my son is in Russia, and just for her to receive a call after 2 to 3 years, saying their child is dead. And some of them said they had no compensation from the government, nothing. Some of them traveled, those who died traveled, leaving their families, their pregnant wives back home with children. And so these mothers are just fending for their grandkids by themselves with the little that they can do. There've been not much from the side of the government in terms of helping financial-wise.
Is it my understanding that these families are not even able to keep in touch with their relatives?
Sometimes when they get back there from, talking with some of these family members, when they get back there, the time, they give out time for their children to walk over there. And, once they join, it's really difficult to keep in touch immediately, because most of them, when they were leaving, they didn't have in mind that they were going to be found in the battlefield. And so when they get there, it takes them time to adjust to the new realities on the field. And some of them even take time to reach out to their families. Look, for example, there was a young Cameroonian aged 35 who went there, and it was only later discovered 3 years later that he had died by the family because a friend in the army had called back home. And so sometimes when these Cameroonians get there and discover that, oh, it wasn't as promised, it's really difficult to really inform the family that this is what they are going through. So sometimes they take time, to adjust to the new environment and the situation in which they find themselves. Other times they see it as difficult, but because they want to believe that, no, they are going to come out, it's going to be juicy for them. So they take out time first to work and then before informing their families. So, yes, sometimes they don't get in touch. The family don't get in touch with their children. They have to wait for some time before they get in touch.
Thank you for that update, Dorcas. Bamjo, we hear there is something called African Initiative. Dorcas actually mentioned it earlier, and it has been described as a front for Russian intelligence services and has also been designed to extend Russia's influence and its propaganda in Africa. Earlier, you also talked about how Russia seems to have positioned itself as a hub for employment and, better remuneration. What can you say about these initiatives and how deeply entrenched are they in Cameroon?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. When we talk about this initiative, it's we refer to it as Wagner. Wagner is one of the initiative that Russia had for Africa. This is very old, and Wagner as we refer to it as a military, the military arm or the security arm of Russia in Africa, and this was intended to be able to extend Russia's influence in some areas in Africa and establish, because with the Soviet Union, with the establishment of the Soviet Union, and of course the collapse of the Soviet Union, later on Russia has been looking for how to be able to expand to other parts of Africa and to other parts of the world. And before then, we've had some leaders in Russia who in one way or the other, they have been pushing for this particular initiative. They have been pushing for it for a long time, and we have seen them expand in places like Central Africa. So Wagner continued to be a major influence for Russia, and to be able to expand Russia's influence in Africa.
Interesting. Dorcas, talk to me about how these recruitments manifest. Are they open recruitments or otherwise?
Yeah, it's true. We have, people who say, oh, we have jobs to offer, but you must understand that on the surface, sometimes it looks like cultural outreaches, it looks like, going for programs, civic programs. And yeah, that's how it looks like. Sometimes you may want to think that, it's going to be for a cultural program, a civic program. But also, like you said, sometimes Cameroonians are alert thinking that, it's for work, not necessarily knowing what's beneath, what's on the surface. So that's how it works. We see the French minister also had sometimes ago called the front, administered by the Russian intelligence, saying that it's spreading propaganda. Yeah, and most also it comes in as it appears as if it's for an educational exchange. Yeah, you look at a program like that. We have like Alabuya, which comes in as an educational exchange. But then it's a company that is known to be recruiting Cameroonians to fight over there in Russia.
What I'm struggling to understand is that there have been several reports about these recruitments being a facade of sort, causing people to even lose their lives. Are people not scared to take up some of these opportunities, even after hearing all the gory stories?
You see, there's that growing frustration back here in Cameroon. And sometimes people say, if I die, I die. Sometimes people say, oh, I need to take courage and go look. Like I earlier on said that Cameroonians are in search of greener pastures. They believe that abroad, sometimes they are being told that the money that they are going to get there, when you hear huge sums of money and you see what you're getting back home, you're like, oh, even if it means me doing what kind of job there, just the fact that the money is, juicy, convincing. So they just want everything that's going to give them money. I think that's what is at the back of their mind. But then we have a few who have, when these offers came in, they rejected. But from statistics, most Cameroonians really do not care. All they want to is just to get out and look for something to do.
All right. So Banjo, Dorcas mentioned there examples of people who are aware of the risk but still go ahead to accept these job offers. Does that make these Cameroonians willful participants of this recruitment scheme?
I want to think that with the hardship, with the fact that families are going through a lot in Cameroon, these young people cannot let go, and the fact that the various platforms, we have different platforms that these young people sign up to, and these various platforms provide attractive pay packages for them. Some of them who imagine that you're a carpenter in Cameroon and you cannot earn about maybe 100,000 in a month, but somebody somewhere is promising you maybe 3 million francs CFA for you to come and work. It is very attractive. Let us not also be too biased. There are Cameroonians who are in Russia, who've been in Russia for long, who've been in the Russian military, who went there and they were absorbed by virtue of the fact that they've been there for long. They've been absorbed and they are doing well in Russia. We've had Cameroonians in Russia who are also doing well, who went there for studies and they are doing well. So I think that we should not also let that line. But what actually attract them more is the issue of nationality. Because in the various platforms, they'll tell you when you get to Russia, in 6 months, you'll be granted Russian nationality. And that is what keeps on pushing them to these areas.
Another question that just came to mind that I should ask is whether there is any provision in international law that bars any country or puts any legal consequence on a country listing another national into their army.
The international law does not prohibit any foreigner from joining a foreign army. A foreigner can join depending on the circumstances. It could be voluntarily enlisted in a state's armed force. The problem arises when recruitment involves fraud, coercion, trafficking, unlawful or mercenary activities. And when you look at Article 47 of the Additional Protocol of the Geneva Convention, it defines a mercenary as someone who has been taken to a particular military, to have a direct part in or to take direct part in the hostility, who is being essentially motivated by his private gain. So you realize that the responsibility of whoever who dies in a foreign land while fighting in that foreign land lies in the in the family.
Recently, we saw Ghana engage with Russia, calling for an end to these recruitments of its nationals. So this sort of goes beyond Cameroon to a lot of other African countries. What actions do you think African governments, not just Cameroon, can take to stop these recruitments?
Well, I want to think that what most African countries need to do is to go back to their economy and see how they can make their economy attractive. To everybody, and the policies should be redesigned to be inclusive, so that everybody can be on board. And the government should also, because it's condemning the issue. When you condemn, it ends at condemning. So we have to, we must be able to diplomatically have a kind of discussion with Russia, with all these countries that are involved, so that they can maybe they can caution or sanction some of the groups that are recruiting on behalf of Russia, or to condemn some of the groups that are recruiting on behalf of Russia, because there are groups there. We have various groups that are recruiting on behalf of Russia. So we must be able to have that diplomatic offensive diplomacy that can be able to have a kind of discussion that can enable us have a kind of discussion, or that can enable Cameroon have a kind of discussion with Russia that we can look into the issues that are at stake. And of course, the government must also be able to be pragmatic enough. To be pragmatic enough to see how they can interact with her citizens, to see how they can caution the citizens on the dangers of going out to Russia. Because since all of this started, we've not actually had a kind of official policy that has been sent out by the government of Cameroon in relation to that. Because the government is also being tactful, given that the issues or the recruitment process or the recruitment is done by private individual. So as a private individual, the government only has to condemn. They have to condemn and liaise with Russia to be able to see whether they can be able to handle the issue at their own level.
Thank you for that. You just heard Dr. Banjo Herman. He's lecturer at the University of Bamenda and political analyst. Earlier, you heard DW's Dorcas Ekupe joining us from Bamenda. Grateful for your time, you both. For many young Cameroonians, the reasons are familiar. Limited job opportunities, the promise of better pay, and in some cases, deceptive recruitment offers. Citizens weigh in.
In my own opinion, I'm going to blame mostly the government, because I know that the government has the power to stop citizens from going out of the country. Like in other countries, when something happens like that in a foreign country, the government usually bring back its citizens back in their country. But here in Cameroon, it does not happen that way. So I would like to say that the government has a very big role to stop its citizens from going out of the country to go and fight in a different country.
Personally, I think that Cameroonians who've had to go fight in the Russia-Ukraine war, they should assume blame for their ill-informed decision, because I know that there is this bush-falling syndrome, which makes Cameroonians to sometimes, go for any available so-called opportunity, irrespective of the context, including that of conflict like that of Russia. So had they, made good efforts to understand the context well, of course, the government needs policies to regulate or maybe to limit such, movement. But I would think that the responsibility lies in Cameroonians.
Really, I cannot really blame them, because this is our country. There's no job opportunity, so they are traveling there to go and look for greener pastures. And when they reach there, they might not really know what they are going to face there. So I cannot really blame them. It's only that when you are about to travel out, at least think twice.
The Cameroonian government maintains that it does not deploy troops abroad outside international mandate and has warned citizens against joining foreign conflicts. But despite these warnings, recruitment appears to continue. Analysts say the government must act decisively, strengthen the economy, engage Russia diplomatically, and sanction groups recruiting on Russia's behalf. What do you think? Share your thoughts with us on Facebook and on TikTok at DW Africa. Listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel. This show was co-produced and edited by Eddie Micah Jr. I am Ajua Tinkrama Domina. Bye for now.
DW. Made for minds.